You can't hear me? Okay. I'm going to try to be louder. All right, so let's just, Christy, you do this slide. Just go ahead for it.
Hi, everyone. If you prefer interpretation to Spanish, you can go ahead and click the interpretation icon below in your Zoom meeting, and you can choose Spanish, and then you will get the interpretation that way. Perfect. And I typed it in the chat as well, so you can see that. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Fabulous. All right. Is that going to work? Yeah. Okay. So I'm just going to highlight our agenda, and then I've got some folks we want to introduce and let speak. But we did our introductions. We have a couple more to go. We're going to do a little bit of context and plan overview for what is this triangle plan. Then we're going to talk about our engagement roadmap and what this process is going to look like. And then we'll highlight some of our outreach strategies that are coming together to support this. And we're open to questions and conversation, of course. As we go through it, if you have a question or a clarification in particular, please raise your hand. If it's a question that can wait till after we get through the explanation, that would be great too. Okay? All right, so with that, sorry, this is me. I would love to introduce, let's do a couple more introductions. This is our MIG team. Why don't you guys say hi?
Hi, I'm Finn. I am with MIG, helping the project team here with Matt, too.
I'm Matt, also with MIG, planner urban design.
Yep, and they're planning urban design and some of our technical resources. And my firm is called OV Consulting, and we also do planning and design and engagement, and have had about a decade of work out here in the Globeville and Elyria-Swansea area for the past years, and worked on a lot of projects. So we're excited to be here tonight and really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you. Okay, with that, I'm going to hand it over to Mike, and he's going to fill you in on some information.
All right, well, thank you all. Good to see some of you again from this morning's session. These two sessions today were intended to be our initial briefing meetings with community organizations as the first step in what you'll see is a lengthy process that we are kicking off for the Triangle Vision, Community Vision Plan. And we're going to go through that in great detail. But in a nutshell, this is an 18-month process of planning and community engagement. We are looking at the 78 acres shown here. That includes the area north of I-70, which is what we've sort of traditionally referred to as the Triangle. It also includes the Coliseum site south of I-70, with the caveat that the area south of I-70 has significant environmental issues that will require significant investment or cost to remediate. So while we're looking at the entirety of the 78 acres, that area of the Coliseum site is likely to be a future phase of implementation due to the cost associated with cleaning that up to a level that we could actually implement the vision plan. But we felt it was important to include that as part of the overall engagement and the ultimate site plan that will come out of this process, because it's an important piece in how it works with the rest of Triangle, with the campus, and with the neighborhood is critical. At the end of all this, we will have a final site plan. We are working under a series of plans that already exist in the city, as is typical. We've got Blueprint Denver. We've got the neighborhood plans for both Globeville and Elyria-Swansea. We've got the campus master plan, which was completed back in 2015. And this is a subset under the campus master plan that's looking at how we can, now that that master plan is 10 years old, we have the opportunity to look at what conditions have changed, what other land uses or types of development could be part of Triangle. And that's what this, one of the things that this planning process will look at in depth and engage residents to get their input and opinion on. A couple more things, then I'll turn it over to Beth. We have been in the process of planning the planning process for over a year now. we engaged a group of residents, many of whom are here tonight, called the Community Outreach Work Group, or the COW, and they led us through a 6-month process to a series of recommendations on how we as the city should be doing this engagement on Triangle differently. What you'll see tonight is our plan to follow through on those goals and implement that into a robust planning and engagement process to really hear from all residents in the community and have them inform what the final site plan is that will lead to the future and final phases of the National Western Center campus. With that, I think that's it. Is there one more slide, or is that the next two?
I feel like the next one's our neighbors.
All right. Maybe one other thing. We have a lot to get through, and this is really sort of the overview of our process and the roadmap of how we're going to do this. If possible, we'd like to get through this presentation. So if you have questions as we go, if you could just write them down. There's some note cards on tables. We want to save time at the end to have the questions and discussion, but we want to try to get through this material first and then open it up for conversation.
Awesome. Okay. All right. We will go a little faster than we made it through this morning, maybe. Okay. So let's move to, all right. So again, this is just to kind of start our conversation. Of course, we have our neighborhoods. We noted this morning, we have Globeville, we have Elyria, and we have Swansea. Okay. So we will make sure that's not a dash, but this is our 78 acres and it sits in the middle of our neighborhoods. So that is why we are here to have this joint planning and engagement process. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Christine. All right, so let's talk about what this plan is going to include and what all we have to get our arms around, okay? So there are some public assets that are part of the National Western Center, okay? That is an arena, a 10,000 seat arena, the 1909 stadium renovation, the Expo Hall space. Okay, those are part of what we need to be looking at when we look at this area. But we also have other requirements like transportation infrastructure, utilities, stormwater, and drainage. So when we get to this site planning exercise that we're going to do over the next 18 months, those all have to be part. The site has to actually work, and the infrastructure has to actually support the growth of the site. Okay. The other items, which are of course way more exciting, are our land use and our community spaces. So we have to look at affordable housing. Where are our opportunities for affordable housing? How are we going to include that? How is that part of this plan? What else could there be in land use? Mixed use, small businesses, retail, other components that the community is looking for through the land use plan. We definitely want to acknowledge community spaces. Maybe that's a plaza, maybe that's a park, maybe that's a park plaza and trees. We can talk about that as we go. So that's definitely on the table. And last, but definitely not least, is the commitment to community ownership. So we are going to be studying different ownership models as we move through this planning process and understanding what are the right ownership models to work with the site plan that we're building together. Okay. And out of that, of course, additional benefits. Benefits might be parks, might be programs. We don't know yet. Okay, so to make that happen and to make all of that technical work, community input and needs, and the physical layout of the site, we need everyone to be at the table, and we acknowledge everyone has a role to play, okay? So the community needs to be involved, and they need to be participating heavily in this process. Our community organizations need to be part of this process and understanding all the challenges and the opportunities that come with this site. Our Triangle project team, that is the National Western, of course, also our campus partners, the consultant team, all the folks that make up the Triangle project team itself, okay? And our city council, because they're going to go with us through this process and stay informed and stay involved, okay? All right, so a couple notes on our engagement and planning is that we are very much building on the Community Outreach Working Group, the COWS, engagement plan. Okay, so when we came on board, that is what we were given, and they said, look at this and figure out how to do this. That's what the challenge was. So we did, and we went through, when you, afterward, if you want to look at this, these are all the elements that were identified in the COWS engagement plan. And so we went through an exercise of figuring out what could we do to put that into practice, and how could we make those things come to life in a planning practice, a planning process. So this is very important. Out of that, we have come up with many ways to be engaged and many ways to participate, and we're going to walk through that tonight. And the whole idea behind all of this process that we're going to share is that this is an opportunity for co-creation. And that's not always an easy thing, but it's going to be us all working together to create this plan, you know? And so co-creation and associated with that is shared decision-making. So how do we make our decisions? How do we stay informed? And how do we get to the same answers? Okay, so this just illustrates this idea, right? So the goals that came out of the COW plan and all the process that those folks went through, a collaborative and empowering community engagement program. We want to support a thriving, connected, and resilient community. We want to create mechanisms and structures for community voice, and we want to provide transparent two-way communications. So when we put together, when we tried to design a process that was going to do all this, those are the goals that we were trying to weave in and think about. How can we do this? And we want opportunities for engagement, recognizing we have to do technical site planning as well. And together, those pieces come together to give us this idea of shared decision-making and being on the same page, and ultimately producing the final plan. Okay, all right, so any questions so far? We're gonna kind of walk through our schedule and talk about how this is gonna go. Yes?
I guess I just wanted to clarification. You're gonna use the COW in the outreach as guidance process. We talked about the engagement process, working through the community and not through a third party engagement process. That was a fundamental truth of what we worked out. And even we went and presented to the mayor, and he said he would not fund anything like that. You said that was not a problem, that was just a technicality, and that he would get on board. So I just want to make sure we're clear here, because you're going to say that community outreach and work group drove this engagement process. This is not what was talked about in that community outreach work group.
Well, can we walk through it first? And then we can decide if it reflects what was asked for. Yeah, let's do that. And because it is supposed to, we hope it reflects what you asked for. That's what we were trying to do. So let's walk through it first, and then we can talk about it. Yes.
That was one of the major things that the CAPS asked for, that the community members asked for.
Yeah, and that you wanted a community-driven process. Yes. Totally, I get it. I absolutely get it. Okay, so I guess it is a little tricky. I mean, we want to create a community-driven process, or we're not trying to take that part away, but the consultant team is also kind of charged with developing the plan. And so what we are hoping is that this idea is that the engagement process and the involvement of the community is driving it, and the consultant team is being informed and developing the plan in alignment with what the community is telling us. So we aren't trying to lead it. We're not trying to take that away. And I know that's really sensitive and it's kind of nuanced, but We aren't trying to take that away.
Does the money that we spend back to neighbors and community, not doors and, other things like that.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Sorry about that. Yes. So the question was to start with that the CAL group and the community had asked that not for a third party engagement consultant, but that they be driving the engagement process themselves. Okay. So let's hold that thought for 1 second. Okay. And let's just walk through the process and then we can come back to that. Okay. And decide, can we make this work? And are you driving it? I mean, are we able to do that? And because the consultant team is also someone who's got to make the plan and go through the technical aspects of the plan too. So somehow we have to kind of figure out how to do this together. Yes.
And we responded to
This
each
is-
of
this
the
is
points
it.
specifically and integrated that into this entire approach, which is what we had to be able to walk people through. Can we let Beth get through the presentation and come back to this? I understand it's a simple topic and we need to discuss it, but I'd like to be able to have her present the entirety of the plan.
And then we'll come back because we heard you, and this is everything you guys asked for. Okay, so let's see if we can find it in this process.
I guess my question is, why would we pay someone outside the neighborhood to do a plan that we already
I would like to make a suggestion, which is that at this moment, we get more specific about what the drawing board stuff is, the specialized skills that has to do with hiring a technician and the things that produce the plan as opposed to develop it. But produce
Yeah.
the expression of the plan. There's a lot of technical graphic skills that are added that are part of the firms that are here. Then there is the money that is the face, what I think is worth doing measurement. And as was explained this morning, I'm a little in the dark still, but there is a budget to pay people from the neighborhoods to do the face-to-face engagement, and that has a structure to it that is being asserted in this report, parallels the CAL. So if we look at the dollars and cents of what's going into the technical skills, the architects, the engineers, the graphic designers that are creating the instruments, listening to the brainstorming for the site. And then what is it that supports us being engaged with each other in the neighborhoods to bring the neighbors into the process and to make some accountability to people being heard. So I'd like to suggest that we look at that in that way as we go into this, because I agree paying face-to-face engagement, but is not what the travel and all of us. I believe the evaluation we can do is specific. Once you get the figures up, and we can separate those. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
So
go
let's
ahead.
go through it, and then we'll come back onto this. Okay. So this is the 18-month process. That was part of the CAL request. Is that we give ourselves enough time to be able to actually engage in this, okay? So it's not fast, we're not gonna just whip through it, we're gonna do it together, and it's gonna take time. Okay, and then let's go forward one more. And so we're ending in about spring of 2027, okay? That's quite a while. And within that, we have these different phases of actual planning and design, okay? That does need to take place. Okay, so we're going to look at the constraints of the site, the physical constraints, the conditions, the networks, the roadway surrounding it, the drainage, all of those kind of things we have to understand. We're going to confirm with you guys your vision and goals and your values, so that's you. And then in the first phase, we're going to understand that, and we're going to bring some of this historic context and community conversation to this phase as well. Then we're going to get into what we call programming and bubble diagram, which is kind of like the ideas, but it's looking at different ways that we could consider this site. If we want this, we'll design it this way. If we want this, we'll go this way. Does that leave us space, and how much space? And so there is this, while this is kind of a bubble diagram, this is the beginning of the more technical assessment of the site and how it can work. And each of these bubbles is, if that's a garage, well, you have to be able to go in and out. Or if it's a grocery store, you have to be able to operate, okay? So we have to think about all those components. Then we move from these bubble diagrams into actual site alternatives. So now we're getting very real. What kind of density can we have? How does our street network work? How do we lay this out? How does DOTI, the city's transportation group, agree to this? Do they approve the drainage situation? You know, there's a lot of details that go into a site plan. Oh, can you go back one? Yes. And then finally, we will get to our final site plan. So we will come up with a more narrow number of alternatives, and then you will be choosing out of those alternatives the site plan, the final, okay? So that's the idea behind the workflow process. And now we're going to talk for a minute about the next thing, which is, okay, so here's our workflow, right? It's these four. And we just went through that. We just want to acknowledge that this planning process is influenced by the COWS engagement plan, okay? And we designed the engagement to go with this planning process around this plan. And it's informed by many other city, NUCO, all kinds of previous community plans, okay? So there's many, we will be using them all. When we come out of this process, and this is really important, the plan that we produce isn't just a pretty picture. It's a functional, operational site plan, not just a guiding plan, a site plan that is ready to move over to community planning and development and go through the site approval process and the site development process. And that is a very big step. And with that comes whatever rezoning needs to take place to make that happen. So that's kind of why the plan is so important. It has to actually be very sound. Okay, so we'll keep coming back to questions, but let me just keep going for a minute. Can we pass these out? Yeah. So we're going to pass out this so you can just see it. I know this has a lot on it. We're going to talk about it a little bit, okay? So you don't have to memorize this, but this top bar was our planning process, right? We just talked about that. And all of this in the middle is our engagement process. And we hope that you will see that, hopefully you'll say this engagement process aligns with everything you asked for. That's what we tried to do. And this is just us putting it on, operationalizing it. We have to do it now. So like if you say we have to get 75% engagement, well, how are we going to do that? What is the method? Okay. So we're going to walk through what all these things are. Okay. All right. So that's coming around so you can just kind of follow. And we're going to go through this by phase. Okay. So let's talk about, let's go to phase one. Okay, so in phase one, and remember that diagram, we have our technical process and our engagement, co-creation, and benefits process. This is you guys, right? And this is the technical team that has to come up with the plan, has to create the plan. So the brown boxes are what this team has to do. We have to review all the previous plans. We have to understand the site. We have to look at a lot of technical work from the city. And this is us today. We're at this first meeting, okay? What we're hoping is that we're doing this background work and we're coming to a kickoff event with the public. So this will be the first time, this is our first meeting, but this is not the full public. We're gonna have an actual kickoff event with the public, okay? As we come out of that, we're going to have a survey and pop-ups and opportunity to go around the community and confirm conversations, values, what you're looking for, just really kind of do that check-in and make sure that the outcomes of that survey are coming back to this design team, and we're rolling that in and we're understanding it, and we're moving into the end of our first phase. And at the end of our first phase, we have all of the conversations and the input we have heard from you guys that you have collectively also gathered, the survey results. Design team has been well informed of all of that, and we're pulling in council for an update so they know where we are and how things are progressing, so they're not in the dark. Okay, so then you go to phase 2 and 3, which are the same process. In phase 2, remember, that's more like bubble diagrams, and then phase 3 is the distinct alternatives. So, but we're going to do the same thing. You can see here, and we're going to talk about these, we are leading with area captains, the work that the community is doing, an event called Howdy and Handouts, which is getting the word out and distributing a lot of info, and a series of community workshops. In every phase, there are 5 small-scale community workshops geographically around the area. And that, all of those are you guys leading the design process with your input and your ideas, and that is going up to the planning team for technical refinement, meaning we have to look at, like, does that work on the site? Can the water drain? How does that work? But the ideas and the opportunities are coming through you guys to the technical team, and then back to this community organizations group and into a survey to then go around again and see, what do you think? What do you think of these options? Weigh in, tell us what you think. And again, like every phase, we sum it all up. We have the results. We share all the results openly with everybody. I mean, it's all open. And we check in with council again. And then in phase 3, we do that same thing. By the time we get to phase 4, we are well along. We're doing really well. We have a series of alternatives. We're really dialing in on the details. Again, we're back out with 5 workshops in the area. We are refining what we see and what we hear. We're coming back to our organizations. We're doing a survey. This survey here is actually you voting on which alternative you like best. Okay, that's how we're going to do it. And that comes in and becomes part of our final site plan. That's how we're going to get to that final site plan. Okay. So we can come back to questions, but I'll just wrap up a couple other pieces and then we'll circle back. The idea is that between the engagement process and the technical planning process, we are having a shared decision-making process. This is not the standard. The design team goes away, comes up with some stuff and shows you, and you get to say whether you like it or not. This is coming together. We are going to build these options together. Okay, through the workshops, through our conversations, and through a lot of the other things we're going to talk about. So it is woven into the process. That's the goal. It is verified through our surveys and our community conversations and our pop-ups, so we hear back from you. So we have to have a method of hearing if this is going right or what you're thinking, in addition to conversations. And that is a really important element of our shared decision-making. And this survey that we've been talking about is going to be administered by a group called Civic Trust, who did CPD's public participatory budgeting process. And they have a very good reputation. They're very sound, and they give us a lot of options for how we can administer the survey. Okay. And I think this morning we heard a lot about people wanting to be part of how that survey is developed. You know, how that survey is used and what it says and what it asks. So we'll come up with ways to do that. Yeah. Okay, so I think, yeah, I think that's a good place to stop. We do have some more detail on some other strategies like our area captains. Would you like me to go through that first and explain it? So that then when we have our questions, we'll know what area captains are. Okay. Sorry. Yes, I'm happy to take the question.
And can you repeat them for the Zoom?
I will try to remember
Thank
to
you.
repeat them. Yes. Yes.
I just want to know how much land we're talking about for this technical supervision engagement process. In terms of, of all the triangles, how much land does the community actually get to decide through this process?
The entire area is the 78
So
acres.
the community says they don't want an arena. You just
No.
said in that, you just said in that presentation that an arena is gonna happen, so an arena.
Right.
How big is the arena? How much land is the arena?
As we've said, like up to half of that land.
Okay, so then don't tell me that the whole land is through a community engagement process. Don't tell me to my face that this land is all gonna be developed through a community engagement process if you already know that an arena is gonna be 50 acres of this land or half of this land. It's okay, we know an arena is gonna go in there, but let's be blunt about what's actually happening with this land.
Okay.
And what actually the community has involved, because that's gonna end us up with everyone being upset and saying, you told us that we had control of what was happening with this land. You already know the arena is being built, and you're telling us that the community will be able to decide. Don't say that if it's not true.
Got it. Okay. I understand what you're saying. When we say it's a site planning exercise, we know we have to do a lot of things. Let's use the arena as an example. If we have to do an arena, and we know we also want affordable housing, and we want public plaza, and we have to have some roads, a site planning exercise looks at how do we make those all come together. So you are right in that all of the acreage is not for public, for the public. But the decision around how we lay it out and how we plan it and where things go and where they can work, that is part of the exercise that we're going to go through. So just imagine you had a bunch of puzzle pieces, and we're just going to move them around and talk through and think it through. One of those puzzle pieces is the arena. Yes, I understand. So, but how it all comes together and how we design it in a way that we ensure we get, just bear with me, a public plaza or something is part of this exercise.
So I'm wondering, why is there another arena being built when the current arena is already being used at 100% capacity?
And that's
That might have to be.
So this is where we start getting into the actual planning conversations, which is what this entire process will address. So that will be part of, especially with the first sessions, where we give all the background of why. Why are we even talking about it? It's a fair question. We need to be able to explain to the community why that is something that is important, what that looks like, where it could go, what the constraints are. And you'd be able to have those questions asked.
So that this will not be answered.
No. So this was not intended to be a planning discussion. This is our process. We're starting the full kickoff here in a couple weeks in early November. This was intended to bring community organizations and have them get a briefing on what the plan is.
Yeah. Or the next one is better. Phase 3, 2, and 3.
This is just informative versus actual.
Right, for today. But the reason this is so important is that we need to come up with a way we can all work together, which is why we're saying there is a technical process. We do have to make all these pieces fit, and we have all this engagement work that's going to inform this technical process. And we're just sharing back with you, this is what we're going to be doing, and we try to meet all the requests that were in the engagement plan. And this is the kind of the plan to put it into practice. Yeah, and just sorry, one sec. And in these workshops, for instance, when we come around, we do 5 workshops in every phase. Those are collaborative working workshops, like that's where we'll actually be planning. Okay.
Is the land, also fixable homes included, or is that more land than we?
So the half number that I threw out there, those are what we think is required for public assets that need to be built as part of this plan, which is that list that.
Currently identified, that's what the list is. Okay.
I have a.
Yes, I'm sorry. Go ahead and
After
then,
that slide, I have a question. You could go ahead with, I had a question on this slide.
Yeah.
You
Yep.
can take another question while we get back.
okay, go ahead.
So, I know that you mentioned a couple times that community involvement and engagement is really important for you, for us, obviously.
Obviously, yes.
But, we know that canvassing is something that's actually in our neighborhoods to get to people.
Canvassing is
And
canvassing.
it's also one of the costliest things that you can do. We have, I know we talk about budgeting, but we have some of the money is already going elsewhere. Do we have an insured
Yes, that's a great question. So yes, we need to support the cost of doing that. Yes,
That's the next step of your.
that is the next step.
I think the first time is relevant to that also, so maybe that passes, and then you might be able
Yeah, I know
to.
it kind of things like the cash and the
So we'll go into that.
numbers and stuff, but that was explained.
Yeah, it's a good detail. It's another level of detail. Yes, for sure.
And that is
Okay.
a specific question you might be able to answer some tonight. The question I have, when I look at this, to me, that there's a gap of meetings to bring the neighborhoods to the center with us talking to each other. There aren't any open, large meetings, and I'm a little concerned that the,
Oh, sorry, Christy, go to the other.
Okay, so if you could.
No,
maybe have it just
English.
Not that I could, but let me refer.
Okay, there we go.
Sorry.
There you go.
Okay, so the community organization meetings, I would, and the Cal folks are here, and I appreciate that organizations have to be included, should be included. Part of the obligation of all of us, organization or individuals, is to do outreach engagement in reference to what your question is. This is, to me, an orientation to process meeting. And we are looking at ourselves here saying, in my opinion, and people can disagree, but within these neighborhoods, too much assumption is that we have to go out and represent something when what we're being offered here by virtue of the cow saying all of the neighbors have to be involved is we're obligated to demonstrate that we can draw people into the conversation. And we're gonna have to hold the technical consultants that produce the instruments really accountable to work with us to get things that communicate well. We have all been through things that come out in flyers or notices that are, wait, were they talking to the neighbors? See, so I just want to suggest that and that be a strategic planning meeting for residents and community organizations or something. But what's structured in there, small workshops.
Yeah.
And so I just, for discussion, because, we went through this with the tiny home village. At one point we said, please don't put us in circles. And please don't put us in groups. It happened again around Foresight. Little separation, let's get in a circle that's, help us facilitate through the instrumentation and the strategies, conversations among each other that are carrying out into the population so that we have instruments and documentation. Start out with a really good explanation of what you're saying the negotiables and non-negotiables are that you're referring to. And I'm putting those in those terms, Mike. This has been a difficulty. It's very relevant. People ask me this.
Absolutely.
The negotiables and the non-negotiables, but you don't get to dictate to us. We get to discuss this. We still, for a little while, have a democracy. And we can try to bring that democracy into civic planning still. So,
right.
so when we say you know, the framework agreement says this, the 2C says this, the House bill says this, and we get to understand that. This is, to me, collaborating as equals for any of the technical, and the technical is helping us understand how the city administration understands the legal obligations, how the National Western Center campus project as a whole understands their economic business plan. I want to see those things brought before us in a way where we can discuss this, and we can say, oh, for the benefit of the longevity and enrichment and equal opportunity and diverse economy within the neighborhoods, we might want to revisit this. Or, oh, now we understand why we would want
Why?
So I just want us to know this for ourselves. We don't have, and it doesn't mean we fight, and it doesn't mean that we obstruct, and it doesn't mean that we have to deny, but it means that, man, there has to be a rational justification in the context of shared values of some sort. And we've got to find it. So I'm asking that emphasis be brought in the very first, and then I'm asking that there be a mechanism where there's something that brings the neighborhoods to the center. And I'm hoping when you go forward, I don't remember from this morning, that you can get into the budget around what are the finances having to do with people that are being hired from within the neighborhoods
Right.
to do the things.
Yeah.
And I think you have to make, and then we can say, well, is there parity in the, you know, in that budget? So.
Yeah, okay, so that's a great point. Let us think about that. The reason we did the multiple small workshops is because specifically the COW asked for smaller scale, not just a big
I'm not saying
meeting.
eliminate.
No, we want to keep them.
I'm saying enhance. I'm not saying
Enhance.
eliminate the small workshops, but the community organization meeting, there are no, there's the reporting out, the
Yeah, and here.
aggregate of input is coming in surveys.
Okay.
And part of what has been, I think, a failure in the model that I've seen in Denver, civic engagement in the planning process that I've seen, is that neighbors aren't encouraged to talk to neighbors. They're encouraged to take sides based on surveys or based on appeals through different types of literature. We need to talk to each other. We need to understand this. We need the technical information and the legal interpretations to be accessible in ways where we can talk to each other and carry the information into other households.
Yes.
And bring more people into the conversation.
Yes.
And one of the, you know, I want to call them, I don't like open houses, but
Right, but so.
well, I'll leave it at that, but it's something that, I hope other people understand a little bit what I'm saying.
Yeah, and I think with all of this, you guys, we kind of put our best foot forward with like, okay, what could we do? How could we make sure we're doing all the things you asked for? But this isn't, it's not written in stone. We can flex, we can adjust. If you say, hey, we need to have these other meetings that are where we are having more cross-pollination and we're talking to each other, and we don't think that the community workshops are quite getting that, then we adjust. That's how this works. Okay, so I think there's plenty of room for thinking, but we might have to like give it a try and then see what we need to adjust. So, but all good points. I know there were questions. Let's jump ahead to the captains. I just want to spend a minute on it. This is not hugely detailed, but I just want to point out. Go back one, yeah. So we are assuming or hoping that we can get area captains. And the area captains are you, okay? And we think maybe up to 12. I'm going to show you a map. We can talk about it, but we think maybe up to 12. And you're going to work with the project team to understand, like, okay, Amy's saying, all that rationale and technical understanding of the site and things we all want to understand, and understand the why of why we can or can't do something. That's all part of this. And captains are going to work with us so that they understand it and can be a resource back to their community members, okay? They're gonna be with us for the 18-month time frame. You're not working every day during 18 months, but over a longer period. Currently, we're saying $5,000 per captain, and we have some other smaller role of connectors who are just folks that are particularly connected, say, to the school or a certain church and wanna just sort of enable some of that involvement. Let's go forward. I just want to kind of get through this. This is a map that shows you what we think those 12 area captains might be. Okay, and this is just our best guess. Would love to hear from you, or you can tell me later. But we kind of divided it into these areas. So when you say, I'm area captain number 2, this is sort of your geography. And you have 300 or so homes within that. So like if, and then your role might be to make sure they know about things. We also have team members who can help you. We're not trying to dump it on you, but we're also trying to, you want to lead it. So we're trying to enable you to be the captain and be like, go, you talk to these guys, you tell us what is happening. So same goes around. The reason some of these numbers are big here, it's 600, is because it's an apartment building. We're not really expecting you to go to every single apartment or leave flyers. It's like a main office. So the number of households is higher, but the job is the main office and whoever wants. Or if you want to have a coffee in the lobby, we will help you. We'll get the coffee, we'll bring it, and you facilitate that. So we're just here to support the captains and the connectors and the neighborhoods to have the conversations. Yes, go ahead. Sorry.
I'm just curious, because the work involved like AC11 versus AC5 is going to be a lot different. Like, it's gonna be way easier to capture entire buildings, where you can go to like a hangout area or something versus actually.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, this is true. Yeah, I'm happy to take input on, maybe these aren't quite right. Maybe we need to,
I actually think we combine them with other sites. I don't know what other things, but.
got it.
This is what we're wanting.
Yeah,
Help us figure out the right way to organize these things, but that's going to help all things. And I think maybe the connectors help support some of those larger ones or projects.
yeah, maybe, right. Then it's really not, right. Yeah, right. Whereas you're saying like here, right, adjacent, this is going to be a very involved part of the community, I'm assuming. I might be wrong, but they're right next to it. They're probably going to care. And that's going to be a much more involved process. So we're happy to sort of think that through or say, oh, maybe that we need a captain and 2 connectors are the team. So there's a team. So yeah, I think that's all great.
Honestly, I think you split that 5,000 amongst 1 or 2 of the people who want to go into ACM for that meeting. Because I have a lot of feelings about that.
AC11.
In itself, like, in their voices in the future of the neighborhood. And so I think that,
It's changing.
yeah, I think that this side of the neighborhood could split, those couples could split that.
And just
And just, yeah,
add this or double up and add this.
yeah, or all of the captains there go to a meet and greet there.
You want to, does everybody know, understand what you're saying about that section?
I mean, I know,
Well, there's a lot of growth and change happening here.
Yeah, I just,
Yeah, we know, it's definitely changing. It is Globeville. I mean, we've had this conversation so many times, we went and divided it up, right? So it is Globeville, but I do understand what you're saying, and this is a changing landscape, and there's a lot of development coming on that north end, and so.
and it's both of those, 11 and 12.
11 and 12. Oh, yeah. Mhm, right. So, yeah, so let's think about that. We are way open to how do we handle these captains and who does what and how do we divide things up.
so regarding the flyer, I'd like to put a factoid in about budgeting.
Yeah.
I will bear personal witness to when the pipeline was coming in, and Excel needed to, there were several times, with $300, I paid people $15 an hour, and in 20 hours, all of Lyria, Swansea, and Globeville were flyers, every single building. Now, that $15 an hour this was about 3 or 4 years ago, and I mapped it and I timed it. But I hired people within the neighborhood, some of them took their grandson out, their son, their daughter. The families cleaned up a little bit, so the hours were a little bit higher than that. But when you say that the flyering is the most expensive, I think the flyering is actually pretty predictable if you know,
If we organize.
If you regulate it, if you put a cadence on it. As to the strategies, I think it's really important to have good conversations about the strategies, talking, my approach is, I want to understand the collective emerging values of the way that this potential project development, whatever you want to call it, can truly enrich the neighborhood with values that we're building toward here with community enrichment, land ownership. And I want to be able to say this to no matter what anybody's persuasion is, that they're obligated to understand what the feeling is of all their neighbors if they're going to be part of the neighborhood. And so I feel like I want us to approach everybody in some way that says, you don't know everything you need to know, and there's a way to know it, and we need to talk to each other. So sectioning it out, whether we may or may not have, I just want to say I'm a little bit resistant to that and would rather strategize and.
Yeah, I hear you, A. I think we're just trying to make it manageable, you know, so like,
Well, yeah,
you know.
Yeah, I think partly being managed.
You don't have to be responsible for the whole thing, you know, you're not, that's sort of the goal here, and make it a manageable role and give you a chance, if you're this person, AC2, to have those conversations with your neighbors. Hopefully, you know this school really well, or you're building those relationships. That's the idea. But again, you can shift this map. Yeah.
For the participatory process.
For this
Don't
participatory
have to agree
process.
with each other when we get into the room and get into the flow of being.
Yes, and it might take us, you know, we might have to just go and get it going. You know, I mean, it's gonna take some to get people talking and conversing and going around and meeting with people and then sharing all that back so we understand it. So there's, you know, we just have to sort of say, okay, we're gonna do the best we can to set up the right structure. We can tweak it, and then we're gonna go and give it a try, and then we'll adjust if it's not working. You know, if it's not quite right. Let's go to the. Yes, sorry, I know. I want to see you over here. I know.
So, are you gonna get like, it's gonna be 12 people, I'm gonna get more from each neighborhood to do this, because I always say this. They always say DSS, but we are 3 different neighborhoods.
Yes.
And I think we should get evidence for each neighborhood.
Okay.
And I just said, oh, they're from here, they're not pushing.
Right.
We know our neighborhood.
You know your name.
And I think that matters. Like, if you're gonna get more from India, more from Swansea, more from Florida, because a year is something not just one year. Even though they all
Yes, I know.
Yeah, that's the way it is.
We just couldn't do it today because we couldn't make all these changes
It
today.
will be great that.
Yes. Some people.
And then also, there's always gonna be, more people than just one captain doing everything, because you already know that canvassing is really hard, even with 2 people. So we always have to like 3 people going canvassing together because it's dangerous.
I
And
agree.
who's gonna also provide all the materials, and are you gonna
We're gonna provide all.
provide safety materials also? Because trust me, canvassing is fun.
I agree, and I think it costs money, to her point, like, we need to have that as an expense, like, we're gonna have to help pay for the cost of canvassing. We also need to develop all the materials, so we wouldn't expect you guys to go print copies or anything, that's our job. Our job is to support you to do this, right? And not to expect you to spend millions of hours, but just give you the tools that you need when you're ready to go have your conversations or get the word out. And it may be, if canvassing, like to get to what AE was saying, maybe the canvassing needs teams. Maybe, that's a little different role than the captain. Maybe we have to have little canvassing teams because it's a lot of legwork. Agreed. So, it's a great comments. Yeah.
Just wondering, are you also taking consideration to also reach out to local businesses during this time?
Yes.
I think it's also important to get them involved in the what impacted. There's already been a lot of loss within these 3 neighborhoods and business owners. And the economy is not good.
I know. Right.
So I just want to make sure that as they're going through this process, that they're also looking at the local business owners and engaging taking them into consideration, and as well as contracting with local business owners that can help build this project. That should also be considered.
Yes, in the outcome of this process. Yeah.
Be also considered and contracted for when it comes to actually building the building or whatever is being built, because those are the businesses that are accepting the most.
Okay, that's a very good comment. And I admit, we were kind of focused on residents in our heads about how are we going to get this out and get everyone to participate, but absolutely, we need to roll the businesses in there to that plan. Yeah. Definitely.
Well, I think the cow was specific in that we wanted to have businesses as partners involved in it. But we didn't want to open up that box to let business owners determine or approve of the plan because they don't live with it. And so
That's not true. Not all businesses live in CDX, but there are quite a
And
few
so if
local
you live in
businesses.
there, then you get your voice heard as a resident. And that's the most important part of changing the future that we can do. People have to live with it, having a say over what is becoming great.
Okay,
I
so,
agree with that.
okay.
It has to be residents that have businesses here.
Residents that
Most
have.
businesses here, they're not residents, so.
Yeah, I know, like on Washington Street, there's some big businesses that they don't live here, I mean, there might be one or two, but there's mostly not. So, right, I understand what you're saying. So local businesses that are owned by people within the community. Yeah.
It's a real red flag when a business owner says, it's on Washington says, where's Globeville? A lot of that going on.
Yes, okay, yes.
Just a little concerned. I think that to see your area captains, just on this point without hair, seems reckless. I disappointed to see it's not reflected here. I heard you say that you get team tickets, you're gonna table teams $5,000 each. So that's just a comment. Are you also gonna, if you get injured, your insurance gonna cover it? So just like to hear a little more, seems a little half-baked, excuse me for saying so. Also, depending on the statistics, 45 to 70% of the neighborhoods are Spanish households. How would your area captain plan addressing that?
So the area captains, what we were saying, just to clarify, what we were saying is the area captains might need not just one person, might need connectors to help them specifically. Okay, that's possible. Might need little teams that are available for canvassing. So you're not like, okay, I got to go do this whole neighborhood, right? Like, so that's part of what we were talking about. So definitely open to those kinds of ideas to support this idea of captains. If we go to the next, I think the next one has so right now we were thinking the connectors have a smaller role and they get paid about $500. It's a much smaller role. Maybe the way we're talking, the connectors are something different, or more involved and are actually supporting the captains. So this is a good conversation for us to understand. Yep, you're right. And the canvassing people are not, they're just canvassing people. But maybe we pay them hourly, or maybe they're not getting paid the $5,000 that the captain's getting paid, but they're something smaller. So we just need to think through, okay, so we didn't have canvassers 2 hours ago, but maybe we should. It's a good idea. So, yeah,
What we're addressing, that half of our neighbors speak Spanish, half of our neighbors speak English. If you have one person, everyone decided to be bilingual, or how are you addressing the
yeah,
whole other population you're not addressing?
We could ensure that all
Yeah.
teams are bilingual.
yeah, that we would have to make sure that we have both languages on the team, for sure.
In everything in this process, we'll have.
Yeah.
bilingual.
Yeah,
That's specifically what we talked about, having a stranger knock on your door. I know at least 3 people on the block that will not answer their door for a stranger. They will
Yeah.
not answer their door for a stranger. So I have to text them and say, hey, I'm next door, I'm gonna knock on your door, come answer the door. You're not gonna get those people unless you hire someone from our neighborhood
yeah,
who knows that.
that's what we're saying.
That's the question.
Yeah, that's what we want to
The
do.
intent of that map is that each one of those issue areas,
So how are you gonna
action
do
comes
that
from that area.
without organizational involvement? Like this meeting right here, I mean, most of you guys are probably to me. And there's what, 2 organizations here that have shown up? How are you gonna find one business, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 12 areas plus for partnering you up, 24 people? If you can only get 2 organizations to show up to your meeting, you're saying that you guys are the experts at doing this, that we can't, as a community, do this, that you're not willing to pay community to be the people who are facilitating this. Then you have to be able to show us that you can find that many people that are from community organizations.
Yeah, community members or community organizations, both. I mean,
I don't see very many community.
yeah,
So,
well, it's true.
How do you
We
say-
have to get them. We have to find some
I
people.
made the text this morning when I was reading. On this thing, timeline, it says in, I think, November and December of 25, area capture process begins. Okay, I think regarding the halfway, I'll pull that in a little bit. From the point of view of workers' dignity, which is what I will address right now, without paternalistic offers of chunks of money, with an undefined task, which is typically what happens, why Walmart gift cards annoy me, what's the real equivalency of the, as much as I appreciate that they do help. Job descriptions, estimates of hours on task, the organization of the components of the engagement. And this is not, so this to me is what is lacking, is what, and I appreciate that the principle, make resources available. But I can tell you that just working predominantly with local cares, which was a casualty, this was really predictable. We knew how many hours it took to make the flyers, to get them on the doors. It isn't that we're necessarily going to be knocking on doors, although the fact that I did understand from this morning what the cow was recommending that people would be hired from within the neighborhood in proximity. And this is about the same as announcing an RFP. The strategy that has to be is how do we get the word out to get people to apply for these jobs? Then where does that application go? And one of the big missing links I think has to be addressed is where are neighbors engaged in the process of preparing the graphics, preparing the instruments of communication, and helping select the people that are going to be working in the neighborhoods. And maybe that's what I'm in my head saying, if we're going to have team captains, then there has to be a full 3 neighborhoods notification of that.
Yes,
So-
and an application process.
And I feel like this is not premature, and it's something that ought to be in this particular meeting, is how, it's like, there are mechanisms, and, you can assign some budget right now to have a crew that puts the announcement of the applications there, and then let's get a maximum budget. In my opinion, I think it helps to have a maximum gross budget for the engagement that the constituents in the neighborhoods are going to have the opportunity to do as professionally and be paid. And it doesn't have to be people from organizations, it can be. It's important that no one organization or no 3 organizations, and that you're going out there as an individual. not to represent your organization, any more than the city is going out to the city staff. This has got to be draw people into the conversation.
Yeah.
It will be the only thing that changes what I've seen going on in this particular neighborhood, and other neighborhoods for decades, through other people's experience that only like 14 years in my experience. So I just want to say, let's treat it as a professional job opportunity with a job description. And there's people in this room, at least 6 that I can see right now, that could sit down and give our estimates
Yes.
about what it takes to do.
And we would be
figure out how
happy
do
to
it.
talk that through. If you go to the next slide, we have started that. We do. We have been, oh, not this one, go to the next one. Like, okay, what are you going to do? And we had a lot to cover tonight, so I didn't bring every detail or the application, but this is the next piece of this is, okay, what does this look like? Okay, if you have to go to a Howdy and handout, that's 2 hours, okay? And you know in this process that we're hosting those in 2, 3, and 4, or whichever, right? So we have a list of jobs and the hours that we would think go with that. But what I think is really great conversation tonight, you're going to participate in workshops. You're going to work with the design team. That's an hour. This is 2 hours times 3 times. Like, there are hours that are associated with every single one of these tasks. But what's really important about this conversation is, great, can one captain do that? You're right. That's kind of rough. Maybe we need partners. Maybe we need folks that are going with. Maybe we need to think about what does the team look like? What do you need? What do you need? Right? So that's why this is valuable. And if you let us know, we can process that and put this more down, in detail.
Are you all aware of all the community organizations that are in three neighborhoods?
We have a long list. We have a big list. There could be some we've missed, but we'll share that for sure and tell you what all we have. Yeah.
The 2 meetings today were sent out to that list. The intent was, the hope was to get community organizations such as yourself to have this briefing, be able to start to socialize how we're going to approach it.
And your expectation of what the community organization, how you like them to engage with this? Because that's what I haven't heard yet.
Yes, and I think that's really good. It's very insightful because in our lineup, our thought initially was that we're going to be meeting with them. We're going to be having our planning conversations with our community organizations. But some of the feedback we got this morning is how is this team this technical team going to bolster and rely on those organizations? What can we do to make their voice more meaningful and elevate them? And so we got to think that's a great comment.
Is that we shouldn't be to elevate the voice of the community. It should be the community.
Yes.
Whose voices should be elevated.
Yeah, let me rephrase. It's not us elevating you. It's making a process that allows you to go. Okay, so I want to. Yes, I might not said that correctly, but no, it is not us.
No, that's not what I meant. So you said the organization is going to elevate the voice of the community, but it should be of the other way around. We organizations really value the voice of our community, and they elevate it on their own. We're there to support and help them with the process and understand. But they have the decision. That's why they trust us and they rely on us to understand and then support them and explain the process.
Okay. So if I had to ask you, what do you think the role of the organization should be?
I'd like to hear that from the community. That should not be the responsibility of the organization.
Okay.
I have a comment. So, as a resident, not an organization, one of the things that I see a lot is that every development we can rely on organizations to do their job. And sometimes that job is not done because organizations don't really have no one what to do. And it's hard to also do the job. So developers, cities, institutions, so like I keep mentioning in the the meeting today, that residents were not allowed, it was just organizations. That's why we invited more people. Because I didn't agree with that, I really wanted more people, I wanted more residents to come. And more residents to come, and they didn't, because it was, sincere, meeting. And I feel like we're missing the voices of the residents.
Okay, that's excellent.
And more.
Yeah, and we felt we were trying to come back.
You're saying the majority of people here are residents.
I know what I'm saying, I did invite more residents.
Because you thought it was
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
we all knew about it because you are from the same organization.
Yeah.
Some organizations in this community are resident led.
Like not everyone knew about it because it wasn't like real open, it was sent to organizations. And then here, so they knew about it
Yes.
from the organization. Even if it
More
wasn't
meetings coming up for everyone, it sounds like tonight is for community.
Well,
So,
very
Yeah.
specifically, Sandra, very specifically, we have, what to me is a classic in small print. It was added, if neighbors are not members of organization, they're welcome. In small print kind of within that, it was in
Well,
the,
it's the same font size.
it's the same font size, that is correct, correct. But when you use the phrase that you want this process to elevate organization, which you did just a little bit ago, it was a little bit different.
Right, I
Okay.
had that, right.
Right, and I do not feel that consultants or developers or politicians or anyone should come in with the intention of elevating organizations. This is why I think our neighborhoods are in the state of engagement that we are. I objected to it in the early phases of the National Western Planning 14 years ago when CSU was coming in to do nutritional soil testing, and they would only release the soil testing through the nonprofits and pick up and drop off points. Grow house, focus points, and we went out and tried to do it individually and got a higher return. I'm saying we have to be careful about that because part of what you're buying into by saying that is it's your job to bring the organizations together, to, all this background stuff and all that. Look, every single organization I've ever seen in any of these 3 neighborhoods has people who have had families here for 3 generations at least.
Yeah.
Every single one of these organizations does. And what I would say is let's think about what is our obligation as organization members to reach out
Yeah.
to create, if you're a registered neighborhood organization, that was the original intent, to get information out so that it was equally dispersed among the full population of the neighborhoods to draw us into a central process where we can communicate. Hopefully that system will be fixed.
Yes,
But
I
I'm
get
saying,
it.
let us also be elevated to being supported to do what we need to do with enough time to communicate with each other with high integrity instruments that are being generated. One specific thing I would ask a commitment of is that everybody be promised at least the $18 and whatever minimum wage that Denver offers, that it be treated like a professional engagement, and that we get the real clear strategic cadence, how many times we're gonna have to fly, or how many instruments we're gonna
Yes,
have to
yes.
do. You guys do the graphics, do the technical, but let us have conversations about the final content. This can be structured in. The instruments that we give to each other as neighbors, let us see them, let us respond to them, the people that are being communicated with. Let's get the job descriptions and the full-time, part-time. You say, okay, right now you've got 5,000 times 12, whatever that is, 60,000, then is that enough hours? If not, how are we? So I would ask that we start with the basic standards, that this is a job opportunity because we're recognizing the importance of it, and that it be provided for at the level that's needed to have the penetration and saturation that we need.
Yes.
And the participation. And
Understood.
that's a formula.
Okay, I'm gonna go to Lance, but I do need to mention that technically the rec center closes at 7, so we're gonna try to wrap up, but we are gonna continue this, okay? And we'll have the next meeting, so just know, we're not closing because we want to.
My first question was gonna be, what's the timeline? That I won't take away from your wrap up, but I do have a few questions. And, I want to be clear that, I'm not representing all the points that the community outreach work group. I'm just a member of the group, and these are my opinions. But I think we have a real opportunity here in that there's not too many places in the country that's a multi-billion-dollar development, landing in an underserved community. And we have a real opportunity on a national, global scale to really prove that we can do community outreach in a way that's never possibly done before. And I think we can all agree it's never been done as effectively as the community would like ever before in this community. So, the community outreach workers worked really hard, I think, Mike and his team worked really hard, all the credit in the world. Many meetings, double, triple what we anticipated. And I think the outcomes were good, and you captured, many of them, okay? But what I will say is that because the impetus of community outreach work groups, ideas that were embraced, I feel like, we should have been engaged once again by this meeting to sort of just kind of recap what the prior messaging was, and also, not only the prior messaging was, but the order of it, and just reconfirming what was going to be said. Because unfortunately for our group, I think there's, as Lee has aptly pointed out, and others, there has been some disconnect in terms of what we recommended and what's actually being done. It's still left open for further discussion. But as you can see, when you call a meeting like this, the tenor of it is very dynamic and very open, and you have a lot of questions that aren't necessarily connected, because the community is passionate about their beliefs and what they think and what they need. So I think it's really important, as quickly as you can, define an actual budget without much limitation. The only limitation is what does it take to get the job done? That pays people, organizes people, has events that people will want to go to. I don't know how many of you coach youth sports, maybe parents come to a football meeting that's very important. It's like pulling teeth. And our people in these communities work very hard, in many cases have very limited funding and very limited time. So if we can combine events, whether it's open-ended free food trucks, or carnivals for the children, pizza parties, whatever, all these kind of things where city representatives can engage the community one-on-one, CalMembers and other organizational members can engage the community one-on-one. But these things all cost money, so I'm disappointed here having this meeting and not knowing that we have a $400,000 budget, a $1.2 million budget. What is the budget? Because I assure you it's going to be expensive, done correctly. Okay, that's really just a fact. And then I have a couple of questions of my own that I've been dying to ask the last couple of weeks of waiting for this meeting. But, and also, one of the quick things, this is a very small group of people.
Yeah.
Right? This gymnasium should be full. Okay, it should be absolutely packed to the gills. The morning meeting should have been full. And these are good representations of what we've been struggling with as a community, is how do we engage our community? And it can be done, but it has to be incentivized in ways that's meaningful to the community. As equal as providing the community engagement with their opinions is simply keeping them informed. So everybody ends up on the same side of the fence, or as many people as possible end up on the same side of the fence, with whatever the eventual plan is. So it's the information that's so critical. But I would like to know, because it's important, I think, for the community to know, is with all this work and effort that everybody is putting in, is the balance of what was recently approved for the Equestrian Center and the hotel in phases 1 and 2, is that balance going to roll over to the Triangle and the public assets there, or is it a new day? Is the funding for the public assets in the Triangle going to be another request of 2C funds, or the bond issue? Or that's important to know only because the community needs to take this seriously or not. And funding is such a huge part of it, involving, cuts to the city budget, and layoffs. It's important for them to know how serious of an adventure this is or is not. So, what do we know of the last round of approved funding? Is the balance of 450 from the Equestrian Hotel not be rolled over to the Triangle, or do we know?
Well, so I don't know what you mean by balance, but the funding for these assets in Triangle that we've discussed is not, we don't currently have a solve for that. We don't have a solve for the funding for those.
There is no funding for that yet?
Not at this point.
But what was approved was 814 million, and what the budget was provided was 450.
I don't want to rehash the equestrian, but the cost of construction for the equestrian center, yes, is the 350. And the full amount that was appropriated or allocated was essentially like a mortgage. It's the full cost of that financing over the life of the money. But to answer your question, there is no balance being rolled over, and the full funding of how Triangle is implemented has yet to be determined.
Okay.
Okay, so
I don't really understand.
I just want to say, I really appreciate everybody coming. I really appreciate all your input. And we've got it, and we've learned a lot in these 2 meetings. I think this has been very valuable. And we will have subsequent conversations, and we will figure out what are the next meetings and how do we step forward. And but we do have to leave the gym. They do need to shut down. So no, we got it. It's pretty small. We got it. So I appreciate it. And please take food to go, and please, we also had there's an email address on here that
Thank you.
if you wanted to, if you have more, you could email to. Okay.
Thank you.
All.
Bye. Denver Gov. Thank you. I'm gonna close down now. I just wanted to type the. What was that? Sorry.
I just said bye. Thank you.
Bye. Goodbye, everyone.